Hello everyone, welcome to lesson 1-8, roots. For today's lesson, we're going to look at square root, perfect square, radical sign, cube root, and perfect cube. Let's take a look at the vocabulary. A square root of a number is one of its two equal factors. Numbers such as 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25 are called perfect squares. Think about it. 5 times 5 is 25. 4 times 4 is 16. 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. So that's why they're perfect square. Because they are squares of integers. Complete the graphic organizer. What is a square root? Okay, so I think this word means the opposite of squaring. Because here, if I tell you to square a number, I would write, for example, 5 to the power of 2. That's square a number. But the opposite of it would be taking the actual number, this number here, and writing it in the form so that you understand what the square root of it is. So it's the opposite of squaring a number. How does this word fit with other words and concepts that I know? Well, I do know about exponents, because we've been working with exponents a lot lately, so I know that it's going to fit with it. Are there parts of the word that you recognize? Okay, that I recognize? I definitely recognize square. We know that square means to the power of 2, or a number multiplied into itself. What makes this an important word for me to know? I guess it's important because I can undo squaring of a number. Just as I showed you, right? If I know that 4 to the power of 2 is 16, I know that I can take this 16 and unsquare it to make it 4 to the power of 2. What is the relationship between squaring a number and finding the square root? Well, squaring a number and finding the square root of a number are inverse operations, meaning they're opposite. Kind of like adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing. You're going back and forth. So they're inverse operations. Let's look at a real world link. The square base of the Great Pyramid of Giza covers almost 562,500 square feet. How could you determine the length of each side of the base? Well, we understand that each side of the base, right? If this is the area, okay, this is the area. We understand that to find area, you must multiply the length times the width, right? Area equals length times width. And we also know that the base is square. The base of the pyramid is square. So the length and the width are going to be the same number, right? A square has all the same size are equal. The same size are equal in a square. So we would just simply have to find what number multiplied into itself to get this number. So we would have to find the square root of 62,500, sorry. So by finding the square root of this number, we're finding each one of these, right? The number that multiplied into itself for us to get this. And that's how we would find the dimensions of the base, the square base of the Great Pyramid. Let's take a look at the key concept, okay? Make sure that you make note of this. Here we go. So words, what do we mean? A square root of a number is one of its two equal factors, okay? That's the square root of a number. So when we're looking for a square root of 4, we know it's going to be 2, right? Square root of 4 is 2. It's one number multiplied into itself, right? The square root of 81, right? Square root of 81 would be 9, because 9 times 9 is 81. So that's what we mean by words. Symbols. If x to the power of 2 equals y, then x is the square root of y. Okay, x to the power of root is y. So what we're trying to say here is if 4 to the power of 2 equals 16, then that means 4 is the square root of 16. So square root of 16 would be 4. That's what we mean when we talk about symbols. And here's an example. 5 to the power of 2, or 5 squared, is 25. So 5 is the square root of 25. Now let's learn about radical sign. I love that word. Every positive number has both a positive and a negative square root. In most real-world situations, only the positives or principal square root is considered. A radical sign, like that, it kind of looks like a division sign, but it's not. It's used to indicate the principal square root. If n to the power of 2 is a, then n can be positive or negative a square root of a. The reason we say positive or negative is because don't forget that if we multiply a number into itself and they're both negative, it's going to be a positive number. Let's quickly look at these 4 examples. We have the square root of 64. What number multiplies it to itself to give you 64? 8. Plus or minus square root of 1.21. Now, the way I look at this number, I see 121 if I take away the decimal. If I put the decimal back into my answer, okay, you'll get your answer. But 121, the square root of 121 would be 11. 11 times 11. But we're not working with 11. We have to move the decimal place over 1 because we're working with 121. So it would be 1.1. Okay. Square root of a fraction, 25 over 36. Now you know what 2 numbers make up 25? 5 times 5. What 2 numbers make up 36? 6 times 6. And there you have it. Now notice that we have a negative. It's a negative expression, so our square root has to be a negative number. You're probably wondering, if we multiply this into itself, negative times negative, we're going to get a positive. But the radical sign is what's negative. We have to keep this expression as a negative expression. This will make more sense later. You'll see why. And then finally, number 4. Notice that the negative sign is outside the radical sign. But over here, the negative sign is inside. But it's negative. The number itself is negative. There's no real square root because no number times itself is equal to negative 16. Okay, if you multiply, let's say, positive 4 times positive 4, it's going to give you a positive square root. If you multiply negative 4 times negative 4, okay, it's going to still give you a positive number, right? Square root. So there's no real answer for that. Or no real, I should say, real square root. Okay, if you think you got it, do these problems on your own. Please pause the video now. Okay, I hope you paused the video. Let's take a look here. So if I find the square root of each one of these numbers, my answer is going to be, what number multiplies into itself to give you 9? 3. And what number multiplies into itself to give you 16? 4. So my answer is simply 3/4. Okay, B. We have decimal 81, positive or negative square root, correct? So my answer is also going to be positive or negative. It can be either one. And it's going to be 0.9. Okay? Because 9 times 9 is 81. But you have to make sure that you put it in the correct decimal place. If you want, you can check simply by multiplying 0.9 times 0.9. You're going to get 0.81. Okay, continuing. Negative. And it's outside the radical sign. So our answer will also be negative. Okay? And what number multiplies into itself gives you 49? 7. And then finally, the negative sign is inside. It's inside. So we just simply say no real solution. Okay, now we're actually going to solve some algebraic expressions with square roots. So, solve t to the power of 2 equals 169. Check your solution. So what's t? Okay, a number multiplied into itself is 169. So t is the square root. If we take away the square root, we write it as the square root of a positive or negative, right? Here's the definition of square root. And then t must be 13 and negative 13. Because negative 13 times negative 13 will give you 169. Positive 13 times positive 13 will give you 169. So these are both correct answers. You can check. See, there's the positives multiplied, and there's the negatives multiplied. Okay, again, if you think you got it, please pause the video and try E, F, and G on your own. Pause now. Okay, let's try E. For E, we have 289 equals A squared. So what is the value of A? What number multiplied into itself will give you 289? Now, you might not know this off the top of your head. So what I do is, I simply take my calculator and I start playing around with numbers. I might go 16 times 16 equals, I get 256, but I'm looking for 289, so I'm not quite there yet. So I'll just clear that and I'll try again. 17 times 17 equals, there it is, 289. Now it could also be positive or negative 17. So as you saw, that was just simply trial and error. So I know that positive 17, I could just write regular 17, I don't have to put the positive sign, or negative 17 equals A. They both work. One way to write this, you could also write positive negative 17, right? That would be the more proper way to write it, equals A. Question F. M squared equals 0.09. What number do I have to multiply itself into to get 9? Well, a lot of you already know that it's 3. But where would you put the 3? This is where you have to, again, do trial and error. And you have M equals positive or negative 0.3. Multiply 0.3 into itself on your calculator, and you'll notice that you get 0.09. G. For G, we have a fraction, so y multiplied into itself will give you 4 over 25. Well, I know that 4, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 25 is 5. So y must equal 2 or 5. But remember, it could also be negative. So it could be positive negative 2 over 5. So we express it like this, because it could be both positive or negative multiplied into itself. It would still give you this value. And here's another key concept. Please make note of this key concept. These are the main points of the lesson. So make sure that you have these in your notes so you can always reflect back to them. And sometimes for me, when I write something down, it's easier for me to remember it. So cube roots. What are cube roots? A cube root of a number is one of its 3 equal factors, meaning now it's no longer square, now it's being multiplied into itself 3 times. For example, 27 is a cube root because it's 3 times 3 times 3, correct? So the cube root of 27 is 3. So what does that look like? Well, let's look at the symbols here. We have x to the power of 3 is y. Then x is the cube root. It's the cube root of y. Sorry. So if y is the number 27, the cube root would be 3, right? Numbers such as 8, 27, and 64 are perfect cubes, right? Because 8 would be 2 times 2 times 2, 27 would be 3 times 3 times 3, and 64 would be 4 times 4 times 4. These are perfect cubes because they are the cubes of integers. Here you have it. 8 is 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the third power, or 2 cubed. 27, 3 times 3 times 3, 3 to the third power, or 3 cubed. 64, 4 times 4 times 4, or 4 cubed, right? The symbol radical sign with the cube on the outside is used to indicate a cube root of a number. If n to the power of 3, so a number to the power of 3 is a, then we write it as n equals cube to the cube a, right? Or cube root a, correct? Cube root a. You can use this relationship to solve equations that involve cubes. Let's quickly look over these two examples, example 6 and example 7. We have a cube root of 125 is a number multiplied into itself 3 times. To give you 125, it would be 5. 5 times 5 times 5. Now this would be easy to see because any number multiplied by 5 ends in 5. or 0. So 5 is clearly an option. Cube root of cube root of negative 27 would be negative 3, right? Because, think about it, negative 3 times negative 3 is positive, times negative 3 is negative. So this has a real solution. Okay, let's try H, I, and J on your own. Please pause the video, try it, and then take a look at my answers. Pause now. Okay, you're probably wondering, how am I supposed to figure this one out? Well, this is actually not as hard as you think. You can multiply 2 times 2 times 2, or 3 times 3 times 3, or 4 times 4 times 4, and see where you're getting. I know that this is going to be higher than that. I know that if I do 8 times 8 times 8, I might get close to it, or 9 times 9 times 9. And the reason I'm thinking 9 times 9 times 9 is because I know that simply 9 times 9 is 81. And if I were to multiply that times 9 one more time, right, the third 9, because it's cubed, then I might get close to my answer. This is where it's trial and error, so I have to try it with my calculator. So again, I just try 9 times 9. You know it's 81, and I'm going to try it one more time because it's cubed, right? Times 9, and there it is, 729. So, cube root of 729 is simply 9. Let's try I. Okay, what number multiplied into itself will give you negative 64? Well, I think you guys already know that it would be negative 4. Because if I multiply negative 4 times negative 4, I will get positive 16. And then positive 16 times negative will give me a negative, right? Times negative 4 will give me negative 64. And then 1,000. 1,000 is quite easy. Cube root of 1,000, you just simply have to count the 0. It's base 10. How many times did you have to multiply 10 into itself to get 1,000? You do 10 times 10 is 100. Times 10 is 1,000. So what is it? Just simply 10. Now let's put it into practice. Dylan has a planter in the shape of a cube that holds 8 cubic feet of potting soil. Solve the equation 8 equals s to the power of 3, or s cubed, to find the side length s of the container. See, it's a cube flower pot or flower planter. So that means all the dimensions, all the sides are the same. So you take the number, it holds 8 cubic feet, and you take what number multiplies into itself 3 times to give you 8. So you put square root cube root 8 is s, and you find what number multiplies into itself 3 times to give you 8, and you know that it's 2. And when you do 2 to the power of 3, you get 8. Okay, so if you think you got it, let's go ahead and let's try this question together. Okay? Where we have an aquarium is the shape of a cube. Okay, so all the dimensions are the same. It's a 3D square that will hold 25 gallons of water. It has a volume of 3.375 cubic feet. Solve S cubed equals 3.375 to find the length of each side of the aquarium. So what number is going to multiply into itself 3 times to give you 3,375? And now notice I took away the decimal, but I will put it back in my answer. So just as I said, I'm going to take away the decimal, right? And I'm going to go ahead and just work with 3,375. But later on in my answer, I will definitely include the decimal, right? But I like working with whole numbers better. So I'm trying to get this number. I already know that earlier I got a large number, I think it was 979, simply by multiplying larger numbers. I'm going to need something bigger than that. I could possibly try 12 times 12 times 12. No, that's not close. I need at least, let me move this camera. There we go. Sorry. I need about, I'm short about 1,200 or 1,300 more. Actually, no, more like 1,600. So let me try that again. I'll clear it. And now I'm going to try maybe 15. Again, it's just trial and error. And keep playing around. Times 15 times 15. Oh, there it is. But it wouldn't be 15, right? I have to get the right decimal in the right place. So I'm going to try 1.5, which is like 15, but with the decimal place moved over one place value, times 1.5 times 1.5. And there it is. So cube root of 3.375 equals 1.5. Again, I just did trial and error. If you know a better trick to use, please share. And here's your guided practice. Please take a look over it and make sure that you feel comfortable with it so that we are ready for class. See you then, everyone.